Now today, Reform UK has swung the pendulum hard, promising to halve crime in Britain.
That Reform will be the toughest party on law and order and on crime that this country has ever seen. We will aim to cut crime by half in the first 5 years of a Reform government. We will take back control of our streets. We will take back control of our courts, of our prisons. And if you're a criminal, I am putting you on notice today that from 2029, or whenever that may be, either you obey the law or you will face very serious justice.
That was Nigel Farage earlier today. Now armed with a £17.4 billion zero-tolerance package, they have vowed to stop early release for violent offenders, recruit 30,000 extra police officers, build new Nightingale jails and even lease prison space in countries such as El Salvador. Is this the tough love reset the public wants on broken British justice? Well, joining me now is the Reform Counsellor for Westminster City Council, Laila Cunningham. Ms Cunningham, welcome to the studio. And of course, you're a former criminal prosecutor. You were at the headline launch today. In fact, you were the first to speak on that stage. Lots of eye-catching policies in there. The ones that really stand out are the deportation of 10,400 foreign offenders and even deporting British paedophiles, such as Ian Huntley, to places like El Salvador. Tell us what inspired this move from Reform UK.
What inspired it is that we don't have any prison spaces. A quarter of our prisoners are actually foreign. The Conservatives, I think, built something under 500 prison spaces, yet let in 6.5 million people in 14 years. And there's not enough space. And it also costs us a lot to house prisoners, especially high security prisons, about 52,000. In France, it's 40,000. And we're proposing to send them abroad at a cost of 25,000, making a big saving in that sense.
Now, there's going to be a lot of resistance to this, of course, not just politically, but perhaps legally. The kind of thing that gets human rights lawyers clutching their pearls. But I'm assuming that a basis underlying all of this would be leaving the ECHR, which would defang, potentially, those legal oppositions that we get all the time now. Yeah,
I mean, we are Britain. We have laws that protect people. We don't need the ECHR to protect people's human rights. That's wedded in our judicial system. And, yeah, we would leave the ECHR. And I think people are sick to death about hearing of a foreign rapist or a violent criminal that can't be deported because their human rights matter more than ours. And it's time to put the victims and the British people's human rights before the criminals.
Tell us about Nightingale prisons. Of course, we built hospitals very, very quickly during COVID when we needed them, using military personnel. How would Nightingale prisons work?
In the same manner. It was a mission under COVID, and we were determined to get it, and we got the best people to lead that, and we do the same with prisons. For instance, there's Oakwood Prison that is built in a modular way, and their running costs are much lower than the national average, and that's because they house more prisoners, so the running costs and the fixed costs are lower. And it will be the same way that we built the Nightingale prisons. It will be a mission, a determination to make more prison spaces and to make crime pay.
Have you had a random call lately from a strange number, maybe trying to sell you something or even scam you? If so, your info could be out there. That's because of data brokers, shady companies that scrape the internet for your personal details and sell them to marketers or even scammers. These days, scammers can even use AI to mimic your friends' voices and trick you into sending money. It's not just annoying, data brokers often target vulnerable people with high-interest loans or sketchy offers. But there is a solution. Incogni, the sponsor of this video. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and requests your info be deleted from their databases. And because your data can keep popping up, Incogni keeps sending removal requests to make sure it stays gone. They've just launched a new unlimited plan with custom removals. If you find your info on a weird website, just send them the link and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Getting started is easy. Hit the link in the description, create your account and let Incogni handle the rest. It's risk-free for 30 days and you'll get 60% off an annual plan with the code GBNews. Take back control of your data with Incogni.
Now, a lot of eyebrows were raised when El Salvador was mentioned. Of course, Donald Trump has, in a very high-profile manner, deported people, but most of them were El Salvadorians, back to their host nation. Pictures on our screens now. If you're listening on radio, just for the benefit of you guys, there are tattooed, topless thugs. These are some of the most violent criminals, as you can see, in El Salvador, often manacled together in very cramped and very strict conditions. Laila Cunningham, I put it to you, that they're the kind of prison conditions that human rights lawyers would be saying that no prisoner from Britain should ever go to, but you're proposing even sending British prisoners.
I don't think your viewers or anyone in this country would have a problem with Axel Rudikana or Ian Huntley being sent there. I think people don't, I hate to say it, are not that fussed about the human rights of these horrific human beings. As I said, the focus needs to shift on the human rights of the average person who's not a criminal and the human rights of victims. And that's not what we're seeing now. You saw Ian Huntley, he was wearing the Man United T-shirt. I mean, that must be just heart-wrenching for the parents. And we need to be tough. It needs to be a serious deterrent. I mean, look, we didn't have a conversation with the El Salvador government, but it's an image and it sends a message that we mean business.
And there is historical precedent right now, other countries doing this. Denmark,
yes,
for example, has got a 10-year deal with Kosovo.
And number one, it would reduce costs massively. And there are countries that want to take our money. I mean, I know that Labour and the Conservatives have been in discussion, but that all falls through unless you leave the ECHR. And they've kept us wedded to it. So, again, the ECHR prioritises, it seems, criminals' human rights over the victims. You hear, I mean, ridiculous stories of why we can't deport someone. And not only that, but they're housed in a hotel paid by us. I don't know if you saw last week an illegal asylum seeker raped a girl, and he got less than Lucy Connolly as a prison sentence. And it was time served because he was remanded in custody until his trial. And then he goes back to the Holiday Inn in Heathrow. While all of us work and struggle to pay our bills, he's got heating, hotel, pocket money. It's real contempt. It's a betrayal of the British people.
Now, Laila Cunningham, of course, critics would say it's easy to make these sound bites, but in practice, they're a bit more difficult than that. Earlier on my show, between 3 and 6 p.m, I had Mike Tapp, the Labour Party MP for Dover. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Okay. Nigel Farage needs to treat the country with a bit more respect. And, you know, he's firing out sort of headline-grabbing lines about El Salvador, etc. And then he's not really coming up with any sort of credible ways of funding and delivering these policies. Now, we're in government. We've come into, obviously, a very difficult situation. The prisons were full. That's a simple fact. So, of course, we needed to take action. We're making sure that violent criminals are in prison. We've set out a plan to create 14,000 new prison places by 2031. We've already created about 2,500. Now, over the past 14 years, only 500 prison places were created. So there's a lot of catching up to do here. We also want to make people safer, and that's why we're putting 13,000 new coppers out on the streets, including named community officers.
So, Laila Cunningham, that was Mike Tapp on my show earlier on. Of course, the first thing that all of the critics of Reform UK say, in fact, the first question today was, how much will this cost? And you have set out a headline figure, I believe, of £17.4 billion over 5 years. Where would that money come from? How would it be paid for?
So I do find it quite rich that a Labour MP is talking about costing when we've discovered that they are actually the largest people smuggling gang. They conducted covert people smuggling under our noses, paid for by us, and set aside £7 billion while cutting the winter fuel tax on pensioners. But in terms of costing, it will cost £3.5 billion a year. The tax gap that crime amounts to is £9 billion. So these will all pay for themselves. The HMRC itself has said that crime costs the country about £80 billion a year. Some studies have said up to £137 billion a year. So they will pay for themselves. And these cost nothing. So
also mentioned today was knife crime. Of course, something that people have a huge concern about. I think now actually the UK tops the table in a shameful way for knife crime all across Western Europe. Nigel Farage was talking about zero tolerance on this. In fact, talking about stop and search being ramped up in areas where it's prevalent, where it will reach saturation point, knife archers at bus stations, at train stations. Does that send out a message, though, that Britain's a terrifying place to live and you're guaranteed to face accusations, of course, of racism here? When you start trying to get into communities where there are lots of black people carrying knives, how will this go down on the street?
So the message is very loud and clear. The UK is a terrifying place to be. Knife crime is on the rise. It goes up. It is completely normal for youth to carry knives right now. I've seen some of these knives as a prosecutor. They are horrific. They are serrated on both sides. They are there to cause maximum destruction with one strike. They're zombie knives. The Tories said they were going to ban them. Shocking that they didn't. I remember when Rishi Sunak first saw these knives and he's like, oh, I've never seen one of these before. And they're plaguing our youth. And it's our duty to protect them. And it's our duty to be very severe and very strict on it. And the message is international. So I was in America the past 2 weeks and people were like, oh my God, you know, I've heard what's going on in the UK. It's terrifying. How are you surviving? So the message is there, Martin. And it is up to us to help people. It's up to us to put a stop to it, not to ignore it.
And also, of course, mentioned today was New York City's broken window scheme. Mayor Giuliani brought that in. And Nigel Farage ended today with a note of optimism. It might feel bleak on British streets now, but New York did it. Why can't we? But that means putting an awful lot of people in an awful lot of prison cells. You're going to need to build some more nicks.
Well, actually, we're going to halve crime. So hopefully we'll need less prison cells. But I don't see a policeman on the streets. I don't. And like it or not, a police walking down the high street is a deterrent. Right? I remember when I was young and I'd see a cop, I'd be like, oh, crap, you know. Not that I was doing anything wrong, but, you know, there was a certain respect for the police officer then. And you just don't see it now. I mean, yesterday I saw two guys walking in balaclava down my street, and it's absolutely terrifying. And they wouldn't do that if they saw a police officer. And so we have to be a deterrent. And we have to take crime tough. Both parties are complicit. Like the Tories said they're going to hire 20,000 new officers. But what they didn't tell the public was that they got rid of 20,000 new officers. They take us for fools. And I think the British people are I've really had enough of hearing about daily stabbings, muggings. My kids are scared. I'm scared for my children. And something's got to give. And you need a government that recognises it, addresses it, and is tough on crime. And we don't have that right now. We haven't had it in a few years.
OK, thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Pleasure to have you on the show.